Um, do your research is going to be my first tip. So I would say, as some of the folks said during the last hour, visit the school if you can, or obtain, first of all, study the website. Think about the area that you want to live in. Do you want to be in beautiful California or bustling New York City or some totally different kind of area? Do you know of a particular school that has a specialty in something that really interests you? But do your research in looking for schools. Um, and you can find an enormous amount of information about all the law schools on their websites. So do that as your homework first. And if you find something that really speaks to you, put that school on your list. And of course, you don't want to apply to a million schools because it can be very costly and complicated, but try and pare it down to a reasonable number. There are, again, visiting the school in person is great if you happen to be in the US and be in a city that, or an area where the law school is that you're interested in. But call ahead of time. For example, every now and then I'll get a call that someone is downstairs in the law school would like to speak with me about admissions. And 90% of the time, I can meet with them. But a better idea is to call ahead of time or email the director of the international programs or whomever the contact is to arrange a visit in person. If there's a program that you see on the website that's going to be in person, sign up and go. If there's a webinar, I completely encourage you to go to that too, because like this webinar, there's an opportunity for posting your own questions or having conversation during that when you can drill down on some of the details. But you want to look like someone who's done research. So when you come to the law school, you ask questions that relate to that program as opposed to not relating to any particular program. It's an opportunity for you to show how knowledgeable you are about the school if you visit, or when you're writing your essays for your application, rather than just writing something generally. The other thing you should do is when you are at fairs that are sponsored by different organizations or law schools, and there's all kinds of law school tables there present, it's an opportunity for you to learn more. So think of the questions that you might ask. Of course, if you've researched ahead of time, that's helpful. Pick up the brochures from those schools, follow their links about their admission processes and what documents are needed to apply. Take a look at their websites and see if you can learn a little bit about professors who are teaching what you want to take. See how alumni interact with LL.M students. See what student organizations you are, so that when you do apply, you have that as your background. And we'll talk about the application process soon, but it fits in with that too.
Thank you. Once, did you have a?
Yeah. So of course, like my advice is going to be fairly similar to Diane's advice. So I'm not going to repeat what she said. I would just emphasize what has been said over and over is get in touch with us. We do want to meet and we do want to discuss and help you as possible, prospective students. This is our job. So you're certainly not a burden. Like we want to hear from you. Although the application process is going to be probably fairly similar from school to school, deadlines are going to be very different. So a few years ago, I had a student. I was interviewing a student in a webinar, for prospective audience, and he said what he did. He had a spreadsheet with the schools that he decided that he was going to apply to, the list of documents. Because even though they're fairly similar, sometimes there's a little bit of changes, like the different requirements as far as English language score and the deadline. So then he was able to prioritize as such and keep better track. So if you're going to apply to more than 2 or 3 schools, you may very well want to create a spreadsheet to keep track of everything that you will have to do. And I don't know if we should go now into the application documents or
go ahead. Yep. What's a good transition into that process?
Okay. So most schools will ask prospective students, applicants, for a personal statement or statement of interest explaining why you're interested in this particular school. As one of our previous colleagues mentioned, like it needs to be a love-love relationship. So pay attention to when you're writing that personal statement, when you're submitting it, that you're submitting the right one to the right school with the right name. There's going to be usually letters of references that will be asked of you, like 1, 2, 3, depending on the schools. You want to think, and I'm going to let my colleague like chime in on, who to choose for your letter of reference. Like, should it be your best friend? Should it be your mother? Or should it be a professor? We're also going to ask you for your transcripts, depending on how you're applying. If you're applying via LSAC or via directly the school's own application, you may be able to submit unofficial transcripts. Via LSAC, you won't be able to do that. And then we can get to that in a minute. But usually if you apply directly to a law school's like graduate application website, they often accept unofficial copies of transcripts for admission purposes. Eventually, if you decide to enroll with them, you will have to mail them your official copies. But usually that can help speed up a little bit the application process. We're also going to need your resume and English language proficiency. And needless to say, everything needs to be in English. So if your transcripts, if your letter of reference, all of that are not in English, like you will need to have that translated. Although there are some schools who may make an exception. For example, like I'm French, so I actually do tell the French applicants, like you don't need to, or French-speaking applicants, I should say, you don't need to translate anything because I actually do it. This is like a little service that we do. My colleague is from Brazil, and so she tells like all the applicants, like Portuguese, like you don't have to translate it. We will do it internally. So anyway, so that's why you want to be in touch with one of us to be able to ask a little bit more precise question. But I'm going to turn this to Diana for her to talk a little bit more about those different documents.
That's great. And it's terrific that you can receive essays in other languages. We don't have that ability.
The essay, I'm sorry, the essay, we do ask them to be in English because we do want to see their writing abilities. I'm talking about the transcripts and the reference letter, for example. But the essay and the resume needs to be in English. Thank you for the...
Well, that's still a great gift for those who can answer their short answers in French or Portuguese. That's nice. So again, as Clemence said, check the program's website for details and whether you have to apply through LSAC or not. We do use LSAC, and it keeps a database called Unite, which keeps track of the applications that it sends to us. And we know when they're complete, when two major parts are in. One is the Credential Assembly Service, and one is the EAP. The EAP, or electronic application, is one where you've answered 30 or so short answers, attached your resume or CV, and your essay. The Credential Assembly Service is the one where people send their recommendations to LSAC and your school where you earned your first degree in law, or your first and second degree if you have more than one, to LSAC, and they get certified by LSAC also. So that's a process that a lot of schools use. So really take a look at what's required by the schools you're interested in. When we know both of those parts are in, that application becomes ready for us to review. And usually they come in a couple of days apart, sometimes a week or so apart if they have challenges getting the materials together already. So that's something important for you to do. What else do you need to know as you're beginning the process? Think about the program's location. Is it a place where you could live? In other words, in terms of your budget, where you want to be able to travel in and out of, what kind of environment you want to be in. Make sure that it's all right. Is there housing for LL.Ms, or do you have to find places of your own to look in. These are all, of course, things that relate to if you're going to go to the law school, but it's important in when you're choosing as well. Make sure you understand the costs and fees and waivers of fees that may be available to you. For example, when you do apply through LSAC, LSAC has certain fees for each law school that a law school can sometimes waive, but it has other fees that are not waivable. So you need to understand what fees are required so that you're able to pay them, and also know that your scholarships, there may or may not be a requirement, but I guess we'll get into that a little bit later on. And I think that covers really making decisions on applying to a program. Use the tips that I mentioned to you earlier also of getting to know what the program offers. Does it have concentrations? Does it qualify you to take a bar exam? What you have to do if you're going to go there.
So what is your advice if someone is asking, who should my letters of recommendation be from? What would you guys say?
I would tell them, I would first ask, when did they graduate from law schools? If they just recently graduated from law school, like, back home, a law professor is the ideal person. If they graduated a little while ago, or if they were at a school where there was really no personal connection between professors and law students, they may have had a TA who would be able to write a letter of recommendation. In many European countries, like there are some TAs, and they're usually doctoral students in law. Or then the next best option is a supervisor if they've done an internship. Now, for those who have graduated a long time ago, like having a law professors writing a letter of recommendation from someone they had in class 10 years ago, first, like the likelihood of this happening is probably fairly small. And because maybe it will happen, but they may not remember. So unless they really maintain a relationship for those 10 years. At that point, for somebody who's graduated a long time ago, really a professional letter of recommendation, a professional recommender is would be a good fit. Let me tell you, the people that really should not be writing you a letter of recommendation is your mother, your father, your brother, your friend, somebody that you supervised or that you're supervising. It's someone who at some point had a role in assessing your abilities to accomplish a task, whether it is a task of taking an exam or participating in class or a task in a professional setting. So this is in general who you want to think of. It does not have to be a famous person. So don't think about all the people that you know and say well, this is the biggest lawyer in my city. And it doesn't matter if that person doesn't, barely knows you. And the likelihood of us even knowing them is also, or having heard of them, is probably very small. So this is not important to us. What is important is someone who actually writes a letter of recommendation that is particular to that student. We get a tons of a letter of recommendation that you can see. It was a template and just the name was changed. Those really are not to the favor of the students, because at least for us at our school, when we review for admission, if somebody gets a positive admissions decision, they automatically are reviewed for a scholarship. And those letters of reference do matter when we assess for a scholarship. So as much as possible, try to have someone writing a letter of recommendation that is unique to you. And I know that culture of letters of recommendation that is not a universal culture. So we appreciate that. But if possible, try to find someone who is willing to take some time to write something on your behalf.
Thank you. Diane, did you have any further comments on that?
Sure. I agree with what Clemence has said completely. It's really important that those letters are kind of deep in context. In other words, it's not just, yes, I remember Susan from my evidence class. She always participated. Sincerely, so-and-so. They're never that short, but you want someone who you expect will talk about you in some depth. and talk about your success in their class, or if it's someone you worked with or worked for, your success and the kinds of skills you demonstrated working for them, and can speak in some detail. And, I have seen an occasional one where someone worked for someone in a store. And that's great, but that's not what you really want for the law school application process. You want someone who can speak deeply about related abilities, your ability to accomplish tasks of a lawyer, your ability to write well, that sort of thing. Sometimes people can talk about cases they worked on with you without revealing confidential information, but they can talk about how organized you were, how you performed with clients or in court. So think about people who will know you well. And I would say, again, in agreement with Clemence, that you have people who, either professors who knew you very well, maybe you had more than one course with them, or maybe you really excelled in a particular course, or people you have worked with in a legal capacity as best as possible. And you know what? If you're debating what to do, you're not going to call a law school and say, who do you think I should ask? But ask other people you may know in academia, either at your school or your job, if they have any suggestions.